So, when we think about assessment, we often think about children taking tests and multiple choice, true or false, but this really isn't appropriate when we're dealing with early childhood. So, we have to look for other forms of assessment to get an accurate picture of what children know and what children don't know. And one of the ways that we do this is through observation. Observation is an approach where we gather information while we watch students in their environment. This means we can observe them while they play, when they're at group time, when they're walking in the halls, and we can do this in a naturalistic environment of the classroom. We can learn a lot from observations. We can see if there's any risk of a disability. We can think about how we want to program our day and the areas in which children need support and help. We can look at how they're going in terms of progress monitoring, whether or not they're understanding information presented, whether or not they're growing. We can also take a close look at their play and their social interactions. This can give us a really great snapshot of what a child knows, what they don't know, what they're able to do, and what they're striving to reach in terms of classrooms. So, when we think about using an observation as a tool, we have to think about first, how do we conduct an observation? Now, the first thing is this can be tough. You have a classroom full of kids, it's hard to find the time, but it's worth trying to make the time. Um, the first thing that we want to do is we want to set up an area where we can do the observation. If you're working in a lab school, you might have a two-way mirror, but most people don't have that. So they have to sit in the classroom themselves. This gets a lot of questions from kids in your classroom. What are you doing? Why are you sitting there? Can you come and help me? So the best thing to do when you're conducting these observations is to let kids know that sometimes I just like to look and see what you're doing. And I'll be sitting around silently today sometimes, just taking notes on a piece of paper like this and show them so they know what you're doing. Then sit yourself off in a corner and try to separate yourself from the action. Even if you can't continuously do this for more than 5 minutes can be enough to give you a pretty good snapshot. So, the first thing that we want to do is you want to observe. You want to observe the children in various situations. So, it's not enough just to observe group time. You're also going to need to observe free play time. You're going to need to observe transition times. These are going to be important times to check in and see what's happening with the children in your classroom. The next thing you need to do is you need to document it. You need to write it all down. And it might be worth just scratching out some notes while you're sitting there, but make sure that you set aside time within that hour to write more copious notes because you'll forget as soon as you move to the next activity. Also, leave time that you can do multiple observations. Sometimes you've set up an observation time and all the paint spills, and you have to jump up and you have to deal with what's going on in the classroom. And you think, oh, that's it. I don't have time for another week. So try to set up multiple times during the day. So if you miss one, there's another time you can check in. The next thing you do is after you've written out all your notes, find time that you can evaluate what you've written down. Study that assessment data, and you can do it with documentation, take a look at it. You can also do it in terms of pictures. Lots of things like Teaching Strategies Gold and the Creative Curriculum actually incorporate this into their assessment tools. So taking pictures can be absolutely a legitimate form of observation as well. Even grabbing your phone and taking a short little video that doesn't go anywhere but in your classroom. So this is for internal use, so it doesn't need a release, can be a very helpful tool as well. The next thing you do after you summarize that data is think about what was I looking for? What did I see? And how will this affect what I do next in the classroom? And that's really what we want to do with assessment. We want to ask, why do I want to know? How do I want to get the information? And what am I going to do with that information? So before you do that observation, think about what it is exactly you're looking for. Are you looking to see if Johnny knows how to sit with the rest of the kids? Are you looking to see why every time you have group time, Sally always jumps up and runs around the classroom? So these are times that you can take a deep dive, a close look at what's going on with the kids in your classroom, why they react the way that they do, and what you can do to support them. There's lots of different ways you can do these evaluations. As I said, you can take snapshots, you can take videos, you can do something called an anecdotal record, where it's a narrative where you write down exactly what is occurring. You can write down an event recording if you want to know how often Sally raises her hands during group time, or how often Paul is using the bathroom. That might be times for you to do an event recording. You can do a duration recording. How long does the behavior go on before it settles itself? You can do a category recording if you want to see dispositions or you want to see certain behaviors that repeat. So there's lots of different tools that we can use in order to do these observations. Some of the ground rules for these records and these observations is be aware of bias. Sometimes you can go in thinking, oh, every time we have group time, that Sally is so disruptive. And that can really influence what you're seeing. So make sure that you go in with a clear head, at a clean slate, so that you're seeing the actual behavior as opposed to what you expect to see. Discuss what you see in concrete terms. Often we infer lots of things. So if we see a child sitting on the rug, looking around, we might infer that the child's bored. In actual fact, it may be that they get poked every time they sit down by their friend, and they're making sure that they're not getting poked when they sit down. So if we can keep the inferring out of what we see, we can get a lot more detailed and clear information. Keep your recording system as simple as possible. Just little notes to yourself, and making sure that you transcribe those notes while they're still fresh in your mind, so you don't wonder what it is you wrote down when you only had that brief period of time. By using observation as an assessment tool in early childhood classrooms, you really have a great little window into what's actually going on in your classroom. It can help you tailor experiences to meet the needs of the children in your classroom based on what you're actually seeing. It can give you a clear window into not what we think is happening, but what is actually happening. It gives us time to reflect, and it is an absolutely essential tool in the early childhood classroom.